Research before you launch anything. The biggest mistakes I've seen made is building before you've done enough user interviewing and testing. And it wastes so many calories and so much money on the technical side, on the marketing side.
All right, this is another episode of the Founders Pack Form Your Own Pack podcast. My guest today is Allison Paz from Nicklpass. How are you doing, Allison?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Things are good. I'm always on the move. Actually, I didn't realize I have a coffee shop in
I was going to say, I really like that background. I thought maybe you were actually at a coffee shop for a minute.
I am not, but wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
Quiet for a coffee shop. All right, so for people that don't know, who is Allison and what is Nicklpass?
Yeah, so I'm the COO and co-founder of Nicklpass, and we describe Nicklpass the same way we describe it to our friends and family. You have that problem where you go to read an article, you click on a link and you hit a paywall. Well, we've built technology where you never see that again. We sell to enterprises and we have over 200 subscriptions in the network that you can get access to.
That's amazing. We were talking about this a little bit before. There's kind of like an element of ClassPass to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have like a menu of different content options, I think, as part of this.
Yeah, so what we do is we start with kind of a base bundle where we, know based on your role, the industry you're in, what the publications are that you're probably reading. We suggest that to you, and then we actually are able to use our data and suggest other publications that your team should likely get. So we start with a group of individuals on your team and then roll it out more widely throughout the organization. We're also able to start with just basic unpaid pilots and trials so that we can work with you, understand what your team is reading, and then create a customized bundle after that.
So I guess, the first question is, what was the problem you saw that made you start those?
Yeah, so two problems. I was actually a banker for a long time, and this problem we constantly faced in banking was when we'd want to go do research on a team, make an investment, look at a new sector. The way we'd share news and information was we'd just print out an article and leave it on the center conference table, which is not something that scales when we're all working on remote teams and distributed teams and asynchronous teams. And my co-founder actually saw this in Techstars when the CEO of Comcast was featured in an article because they just acquired Sky Media in the UK for $20 billion, and he couldn't read it and didn't know where to get a password from anyone on the team. So it's this problem that we both found that organizations really face, where they have to have access to news exactly on demand at the moment they need it. And a lot of organizations aren't set up to support that.
And, how did you acquire your first customer? Like, what was the pitch and then what was the result?
Yeah, so the first customer was really all based on trials. So it was a pre-designed package, was sent out widely to a large group of individuals, contacts we knew and lists we got from other people. And people liked the product right away. I will say it wasn't truly built for enterprise at first, as most products are not. It takes some time to kind of get a product to the point where it can be scaled at an enterprise level. But the feedback was that this was absolutely something that people needed. They had to have it to do their jobs, and they were, our users were great with us, and continue to be great. They'll give us feedback, we'll work on different iterations, and they love what we've built. That
is great to hear. What stage are you guys at and what's next for you?
Yeah, so we're sort of in a what I call a tweener stage. We're just at closing our Series A. We're really focused on tripling our revenue this year and beginning to explore other product lines, offerings to publishers, enhanced offerings to our end users, whether that's a web app, whether that's recommendations. So we're really focused on a lot of those elements of new product launches and extensions right now.
So since you're working on Series A, that's like, what is that? I don't even know anymore. Is it like 10 million, 5 million? It's kind of in that range.
It really varies depending on who you're talking to and when. Yeah. Then I'll say this, the numbers seem to have shifted even from the end of last year is what we're seeing. But I think, somewhere between 8 and 10 is probably the sweet spot.
Wow, great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So far along, that's great. Because I think we were mentioning before, I realized that I watched you on a pitch event. I think that was on Stonks. And was it my
Yeah.
first million or was it?
My first million. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So wow, you've come a long way in such a short time. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you. It has, we've been working really hard on this. And so it's been great to start to see the growth because we've gotten over some of those like early learnings and pains from pivoting to enterprise.
And if you could offer other founders only one piece of advice, what would that be?
Research before you launch anything. The biggest mistakes I've seen made is building before you've done enough user interviewing and testing. And it wastes so many calories and so much money on the technical side, on the marketing side. I think the things I wish I'd done differently was like that we were just releasing faster, taking the feedback and moving on when I was at the very early stages of this company and others.
Is your primary interface a plugin or is it a website? I forgot to ask that.
Yeah, great question. So we have a mobile app, which also works on iPad. We have a Chrome extension and we're building a web app as well.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
We're big advocates of encouraging people to rapidly prototype and then go talk to real customers.
Yes.
And part of it is getting that feedback. But I think part of rapidly prototyping for us, and I don't know what you would recommend, is to design the thing.
Yeah.
And then use something like Figma to make it clickable. So I don't know what process you used or you would recommend, but
Absolutely. That's what we do. We do a tiny bit of discovery. We'll do some user flows and then we use Figma, and we've gotten, feedback on our Figma prototypes and said, hey, if we built this, would you pay for it? And that has worked extremely well for us.
It's so much less painful than building a bunch of stuff that maybe someone doesn't want or they want it different.
Absolutely. And something else we've been able to do, especially for more self-service tools, is actually just build something really easy in Webflow and get the feedback on that and then move to something that's a heavier lift. But there are so many tools out there now that allow you to get feedback on product and really scope it well before you invest more money in development.
That is good to hear. I think that is a great idea.
Thank you.
It's built a lot of stuff, and then you realize later, like, we should not have built that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I have made that mistake.
What has the role of partnerships and/or community been in your growth and success?
That's a great question. So we are really focused on a few things. I would say for us, it's sort of this one-for-one model. We truly believe that access to news and information should be available to everyone. And part of the problem of misinformation in this country has become the fact that we have a lot of people who aren't able to understand what misinformation is, and then don't have the capital to actually get through paywalls and understand what quality content and quality journalism is. So one of the things we're working on is this one-for-one program where if a large corporation buys Nicklpasses, they'll also be able to sponsor Nicklpasses for education institutions and getting quality news and content to students and teachers who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it and wouldn't be able to incorporate it in their curriculum. So that's been extremely important to us as we've been building out our roadmap and just access to news tools and information for individuals.
Great. Okay. All right. So who is a good contact for you and what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So one of two ways. You can just email me directly, Allison, Allison, at nicklpass.com, or on Twitter, APNERDETTE. I tend to respond to most things pretty rapidly.
That's great. I do want to invite you. We believe also in making introductions at scale, and that's why we launched Intros by Founders Pack. So,
Awesome.
send you an introductions or an invite to Founders Pack Intros, which basically makes automated introductions between founders. Final thing is, when we have interesting people on the podcast, we like you to introduce us to other interesting people. We typically talk to founders or investors in scalable ventures. Who would you, Allison, like to nominate as a future guest of the Founders Pack podcast?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say Ali Bonner from Oat House is doing something very cool. They're building, she's created a D2C product that is essentially a new category in food. And it is absolutely freaking delicious. I'm eating tons of it right now. So she's great and would definitely be worth talking to. She's a really very interesting backstory as to how she developed the product.
I have a feeling I'm gonna go back and look at videos. Did somebody recently also nominate her? I have to check.
It's completely possible. I know they've kind of been quieter for a while, and now we're starting to make a lot of moves. And so I think, yeah, she's been getting out there. And the product is absolutely, I just eat it with a spoon, to be honest. So it's great. It's very addictive.
All right, Allie, I think for some reason somebody else nominated you also last week. Maybe I have to check, but either way, we got to get Allie on now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. All right. Well, to the other Allison, thank you so much for spending time with me. And we look forward to following your journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Likewise.